There's an unreleased video of Caitlin Clark in a tunnel confrontation with Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White.
Yeah, I think any rookie coming into this league, you all kind of experience the same thing. You're moving to a new city, you're meeting new people, have new teammates, have new coaches. You're trying to figure out how the WNBA works. So I think it's all just really new. Like, you're starting to just a very new chapter.
A blow-up so explosive, it could have ended careers. The creator who filmed it refuses to make it public because of how bad it makes Caitlin look, but he confirms it exists. That viral sideline clip of Caitlin visibly frustrated during a timeout against Atlanta? Just the tip of the iceberg. Most people saw Caitlin throw up her hands and thought it was momentary annoyance. They missed what it really signaled. That clip circulated on social media, with some fans wondering if Caitlin was just showing a little emotion or sending a message. In reality, it was far deeper than a one-off outburst.
When you read the body language, it's obvious that gesture wasn't normal frustration. It was a breaking point. Breaking points build over months of tension until something snaps. And here's the connection everyone's missing. Caitlin spent all season forced into an offensive system that stripped away everything that made her special. The logo range threes, the creative chaos, the Iowa magic that drew millions of fans. Stephanie White's motion offense systematically eliminated all of it. So the question isn't whether Caitlin got frustrated, it's how long she quietly took it before it exploded. Honestly, this was predictable. Baisley fam, some of you remember I warned back in February that White's motion offense would stifle Caitlin's game, and the stats backed me up. Caitlin's three-point attempts and usage dropped, and those jaw-dropping highlight plays from her Iowa days became scarce. Why? Because the motion offense demands constant movement and sharing the ball. Great in theory, but it's the opposite of how a generational scorer like Caitlin operates best. You don't ask Steph Curry to just blend into a system, and you don't shackle Luka Doncic with a scheme that limits his creativity. Likewise, making Caitlin Clark a mere cog in a machine dulls the very brilliance that makes her who she is.
This video, and I'm for the kind of guide y'all through it. So Caitlin Clark attended this wedding, I believe yesterday, and now the headlines is Caitlin Clark dazzles at this wedding. Now some of you guys may be like, John, why is this a video? Because it corresponds with...
She tried to buy in at first, running the plays and staying patient. As the season wore on, the cracks showed. When that motion machine broke down, when plays stopped working, when teammates got hurt trying to keep up with the endless movement and high-pressure defense, Caitlin's suppressed frustration became impossible to hide. It wasn't one game or one moment, it was a season's worth of handcuffs on a player who thrives on freedom. For Fever fans, it was perplexing to watch such a dynamic player being held back like that. Even the previous coach, Christy Sides, learned by the end of 2024 that the secret was to let Caitlin run the show, and the team's late surge to the semifinals proved it.
Like to see with that, or is that something you plan to address?
Yeah, I think she's used to some shots that she's taken in the last few years that are just those deep shots, and I don't know if there's times she comes off ball screens where she's open.
That lesson got tossed aside when White came in with her rigid system. Indiana's front office and most analysts believed White's more structured philosophy would take them further. Instead, it buried the very formula that had sparked their playoff run.
White's style may have even contributed to the Fever's injury troubles. When you demand full tilt effort on every play, bodies wear down. Her Connecticut teams faded late for similar reasons, and this year, Indiana showed a familiar pattern. Strong start, worn down finish. Now, back to that sideline incident everyone saw. Caitlin's hands-up gesture at White said more than any quote could. It wasn't, "Come on, we need to execute better." It was, "Why are we doing this?" A direct challenge to the whole game plan. And Coach White's response? She basically ignored it, keeping her eyes on the clipboard. Maybe she thought addressing it would undermine her authority, or maybe Coach and Star were already done trying to see eye to eye by that point. Then came the tunnel confrontation. Away from the cameras, Caitlin reportedly unloaded on Stephanie White. For Caitlin Clark to snap like that, it had to be every frustration of the season boiling over. The fact that footage exists but stayed hidden tells you how damning it must be. In an era where everything leaks, this one stayed buried. Fans were stunned when whispers of that tunnel meltdown surfaced. Many couldn't believe the ever-poised Caitlin had reached a breaking point behind closed doors.
After something like that, you have to wonder how they continued working together. Did they clear the air, or just put on a professional face while their relationship quietly fractured? Judging by the joyless, shaky end to the season, I'd bet on the latter. Now we're in the off-season, and the Fever are hitting reset for 2026. It's a chance to fix what went wrong, and the biggest issue was clearly the offense.
This story that is Caitlin Clark and this offseason, man. Now, we know the Indiana Fever is going to be the biggest talk of the W with this offseason. Stated Caitlin Clark announces update on the WNBA offseason plans, and that's pretty much about this golfing event. Now,
White's motion offense might have been well-intentioned, but it didn't get the best out of Caitlin, and it didn't deliver a championship either. Sure, Indiana won more games and made the semifinals, but that's where it stalled. Just like White's Sun teams in Connecticut that never won at all. If a strategy fails to win and frustrates your franchise player, that strategy has to change. Period.
We don't need the secret tunnel video to know something was off. The evidence was on the court. You could see it in Caitlin's body language, in her reduced shot attempts, and how the offense sometimes bizarrely forgot about its most lethal weapon. There were stretches where she'd barely get to shoot for minutes on end. Unthinkable for a player of her caliber. And remember how she responded when she'd finally had enough? In that Atlanta game, after presumably venting at halftime, she came out in the second half and played like a woman unleashed. She went back to being the Caitlin Clark, the same one from Iowa that everyone fell in love with, drilling logo threes, pushing the tempo, taking over. It was a glimpse of the real Caitlin, a reminder of what she can do when the leash is off. That second half was basically her saying, "This is what happens when you let me play my game." This is where great coaches earn their reputation. You can have a brilliant playbook, but if it turns your diamond into coal, you toss it out. No coach should stick to a system that forces a talent like Caitlin to play with the brakes on. The best coaches adapt to their stars. Popovich built around Tim Duncan's strengths. Phil Jackson let Michael Jordan be Michael Jordan. Stephanie White must face the reality that her beloved system is wrong for her best player. She might be a good coach in general, but if she can't adjust her approach to unleash Caitlin, then she's the wrong coach for this situation, plain and simple.
The Fever need to let Caitlin be Caitlin. We all want to see the fearless sharpshooter pulling up from 30 feet, the playmaker whipping no-look passes, the competitive fire that can ignite an arena. That's the player who captured the basketball world's imagination. And that's the player the Fever drafted. Fans are tired of seeing a watered-down version. They're done with an experiment that clipped her wings. It's time to let her soar again. So far, though, Coach White hasn't shown her hand.
From being that young, wide-eyed rookie to winning multiple championships, to winning a Defensive Player of the Year, to growing into a vet and a leader that she is. She's coming back a different player, a different person, as most of us.
In her off-season media appearances, she's sticking to safe, scripted territory. She chatted with local reporters about her vacation and what books she's reading. Pleasant topics that completely avoid the elephant in the room. It's PR fluff that makes her likable while sidestepping the hard questions. Not once in those interviews did we hear, "How will you adjust the offense for Caitlin?" That silence is deafening to fans who watch the problem unfold and are desperate to know it'll be fixed.
Meanwhile, Caitlin can't escape the situation. She's the one living it. She's not going to badmouth her coach, her team publicly. That's not her style. But you can bet she's eager for changes. She knows exactly how special she can be, and it must have stung to see her own impact muted for the sake of a system.
only to see that system flame out in the end. And now 2026 looms as a crossroads. It could very well determine Caitlin's long-term future in Indiana. She's only heading into year 2, but modern stars start evaluating their trajectory early. If the Fever show they're committed to building around her and to winning big, she could be a Fever legend for a decade or more. But if they bungle another season, even a loyal player will eventually consider other options. She's not issuing ultimatums, but the franchise would be foolish to think she'll accept being underutilized forever.
The pressure is on for the Fever's brass and Coach White. They bet on White's system once. Now they have to decide whether to double down or pivot. Doubling down means sticking with the motion offense and hoping that in year 2, with better luck and maybe a few tweaks, it somehow delivers a title. Pivoting means acknowledging things must change, whether that's radically altering the offensive scheme or even rethinking who's in charge of Caitlin's development. There's no shame in adjusting course. The only unforgivable move would be doing nothing and just hoping for a different result. Standing pat and just hoping for the best isn't just naive. It risks wasting another year and further alienating the team's cornerstone player. So what needs to happen? It's pretty straightforward. First, Coach White must adapt or fail. She needs to retool the offense around Caitlin's strengths, effective immediately. That means more sets where Caitlin is the primary decision maker. Give her the ball and pick and roll, let her push the pace in transition, design plays that get her open looks from deep. In short, let your superstar be a superstar. If White isn't willing to do that, then at the very least she and Caitlin need to have a frank talk and hash out how they're going to make this work. Otherwise, the tension we saw brewing will only fester, and it could sink the season before it really starts.
Second, the front office needs to back this approach to the hilt. If you're all in on Caitlin Clark as the centerpiece of the franchise, then act like it. Tailor the roster to complement her. Bring in another knockdown shooter. Add a defensive ace so she doesn't have to expend energy on that end every night. Whatever it takes, make sure everyone understands that everything the team does is about maximizing what Caitlin does best. If instead management stays married to a system-first philosophy, then they'd better be prepared to watch it fail again and deal with the fallout, including a potentially unhappy superstar. Here's the bottom line. The Fever struck gold with Caitlin Clark, a generational talent who can change this franchise's destiny. She's already one of the biggest draws in the sport, the kind of player you build everything around. Last season, they tried to fit her into a mold, and it backfired when it mattered most. Fans who were ecstatic at the start of the year ended up stunned by how it all played out, and frustrated that we're even having this conversation. Caitlin did everything she was asked to, until she just couldn't bottle up her frustration any longer. Now it's on Indiana to get this right. We're done watching her talent be underused. The clock is ticking toward the new season, and the ball is in the Fever's court. Either they make the necessary adjustments and let Caitlin be the superstar she was born to be, or they risk this becoming the beginning of the end of her time in Indiana. The choice is clear, and the stakes could not be higher.